Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is January 25th, 2026.
Call again?
And if you've been doom scrolling or, just scrolling any news feed in the last 48 hours, you know the vibe.
Oh, yeah.
It's heavy. We have footage, actual footage, of U.S. Marines securing the Miraflores Palace in Caracas.
It's all over the place.
And then you flip the channel, so to speak, and there are reports of these massive coordinated protests erupting in Tehran.
Right, and back here in the States, the internet is it's absolutely on fire with debates about digital privacy and this new Safety Act.
It really feels like the tectonic plates of geopolitics aren't just shifting. It's more like they're grinding against each other.
That's a good way to put it. It's loud, it's messy, and the official narratives, the press releases coming out of the State Department, they feel a bit thin, don't they?
Thin is an understatement.
Yeah.
It feels like we're watching a movie starting in the third act without having seen the first two.
Right. Restoring democracy.
Stabilizing the region.
We've heard them all before.
These are the buzzwords. But today, we're going to try to find this script for the whole movie.
Okay.
We have a document on the desk today titled The American Future.
Yeah.
And I have to say, this isn't your standard Brookings Institution policy paper.
Oh, far from it. This is a document that it really demands you take off your standard Civics 101 glasses and put on a pair of very different, very cynical lenses.
It really does.
It's a worldview that redefines what the United States actually is.
Right. And it starts with a question that, honestly, it sounds a bit like a conspiracy theory at first glance.
It does.
But the more you sit with it, the more uncomfortable it gets.
Yeah.
The question is the United States actually a country?
Or is it an empire?
Or, as the source argues, is it not just an empire, but two distinct empires operating simultaneously?
The two empires theory. That is the structural backbone of everything we're going to discuss today.
It underpins the whole thing.
Yeah. If you don't understand this distinction, this idea of a domestic empire and a foreign empire, then the capture of Nicolas Maduro or the cameras on your street corner just look like random, unconnected events.
But if you accept the premise of this source,
then they are perfectly coordinated gears in a single, massive machine.
So that is the mission for this deep dive. We are going to unpack this document. We're going to explore why U.S. troops are currently sitting in Venezuela. We're going to dissect what it calls the fiction of the rules-based international order.
And we're going to talk about why your smart fridge might technically be a government informant.
Which is a fun thought.
And we should probably issue the standard disclaimer here. We are analyzing a specific text.
Just the text.
This document, The American Future, makes some incredibly bold claims about President Trump's second term, about the intelligence community, and really about the nature of power itself.
We aren't here to endorse it.
No. And we aren't here to condemn it.
We are here to decode it.
Exactly.
We are the cartographers, not the conquerors.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to start with that core concept, the one you mentioned, the domestic empire.
Right.
Because when I think of the U.S., I think of the United States. Plural, a federation of states.
That's the story we all tell ourselves. It's the Jeffersonian ideal, really.
Yeah.
The idea was that Massachusetts and Virginia were, for all intents and purposes, different nations.
Different cultures, for sure.
Completely different. Different religions, different economies, different cultures. The idea was they came together for mutual defense and free trade, but they retained their souls. Their uniqueness was the point.
But the source argues that this arrangement is dead.
Buried.
And it says what we have now is a domestic empire ruled from Washington, D.C. And this is the part that really got me. It describes the federal government as a hostile foreign imposition on the states.
It is incredibly aggressive language, but if you follow their logic, you see where they're coming from. Well, look at the mechanics. An empire typically conquers a territory, it extracts resources, and then it imposes its own laws and culture on the locals.
A Roman model.
Exactly. The source argues that D.C. now treats the 50 states precisely like that. It's no longer a partnership of equals, it's a hierarchy. Washington is the metropole, and the states are the provinces.
So if I'm living in, say, rural Idaho or the Deep South or even parts of the Rust Belt, the argument is that my local culture, my way of life, is viewed by Washington as what? A problem to be solved.
An inefficiency. That's the key. Empires hate difference. Difference is friction.
It's messy.
Very messy. If you are trying to administer 350 million people from one central hub, you don't want 50 different definitions of marriage or 50 different educational standards or 50 different moral frameworks.
You want standardization.
You want standardization.
Yeah.
The source uses a very specific word for this.
Homogenization.
The vanillaization of America. Exactly. The domestic empire seeks to flatten the cultural landscape. It wants to destroy those distinct regional identities, whether that's the distinct brand of Christianity in the South or the libertarian streak in the Mountain West, and replace it with a singular, controllable American norm.
And who dictates that norm?
The administrative state in D.C. and the cultural centers aligned with it.
It reminds me of how big box stores came in and just wiped out all the local businesses.
That's a great analogy.
It's efficient, I guess. But it kills the local flavor, the character of a place.
It's the Walmartization of governance. The source is adamant that this singular American culture isn't organic. It didn't bubble up from the people.
It's being imposed from the top down.
Precisely. And if a state tries to resist, if they try to pass laws that contradict the imperial decree from D.C., what happens?
They get sued. They get defunded.
Or they get culturally shamed by the media apparatus that supports the empire. They're branded as backwards or hateful or out of step.
So the domestic empire is all about control of the homeland, turning citizens into standardized, predictable subjects.
That's the argument.
But then we have the other empire, the foreign empire. And this is where the map gets bigger. The source says we don't really do colonies anymore. We don't plant the flag and sing the anthem.
No, that's old school. That's 19th century stuff. The American foreign empire uses a much more sophisticated, more modern model.
Which is?
It uses partner states.
It sounds so benign, doesn't it? We're partners. It sounds like a corporate merger.
It is corporate. But look at the list of partners the source identifies. It's the UK, the EU, Canada, Japan, Saudi Arabia.
The usual suspects.
The source refers to this bloc as the collective West, or, much more brutally, the vassal list.
Vassal is a loaded word. It implies feudalism.
Yeah.
You kneel before the king, you pay your tribute.
And in exchange, the king doesn't burn your village down.
And he protects you from the other kings.
That's the deal. But the source argues that the glue holding this foreign empire together is a concept you hear constantly on the news.
The rules-based international order.
You hear that phrase every single day.
Oh, every briefing. We must uphold the rules-based order. China is threatening the rules-based order.
But the source asks the one question you aren't supposed to ask.
Who writes the rules?
Exactly, who writes the rules?
Well, presumably the international community. The UN. All these bodies.
The source says that is a complete fiction. The rules are whatever the American empire says they are at any given moment. And the proof of this fiction is in the endless contradictions.
Okay, give me an example.
All right, take the concept of democracy and human rights. That is supposedly the banner of the rules-mind order. It's our highest value.
Supposes.
Yet Saudi Arabia is a top-tier partner, an absolute monarchy, zero democracy. Women's rights are questionable. Why?
Oil?
They sell oil in dollars and they buy American weapons. They align with the empire, so they're good.
Meanwhile, a country like Syria.
Syria is a pariah, a rogue state. Not because their human rights record is significantly worse than some of our partners, because you could argue it isn't, but because they refused to kneel. They didn't align.
So the rule isn't about morality at all.
The rule is obedience.
So a state is good if it serves the empire's interests, and it's bad or rogue if it tries to be sovereign.
Precisely. Sovereignty is the enemy of the foreign empire. The goal is to integrate everyone into this global architecture where Washington, and by extension Wall Street, call the shots. If you step outside that architecture, you become a target.
Which brings us to the mechanism of how you keep all of this running.
Right.
If you have a domestic empire that wants to homogenize its people and a foreign empire that wants to manage the world, you need information. A staggering amount of it. You need to know what people are thinking, saying, and buying.
And this leads us directly to Section 2 of the document, the mechanism of control.
Surveillance.
This is where the source dives into surveillance, but not in the way we usually talk about it.
All right, usually the debate is about the NSA or the FBI. Warrants, oversight.
But the source says we're looking in the wrong direction. It calls this the corporate shield.
A what?
The corporate shield. It's a critical legal distinction. The Constitution, specifically the Fourth Amendment, restricts the government. It says the police cannot come into your house and search your papers without a warrant.
Clear enough.
But the Constitution does not restrict Amazon. It doesn't restrict Google. It doesn't restrict your bank or your credit card company.
So if I voluntarily invite a listening device into my home, like an Alexa or a Google Home, and I scroll to the bottom of that 50-page document and check the I agree box,
You have waived your expectation of privacy. And here is the workaround the source describes in detail. The government realizes it cannot legally spy on 350 million people directly. It's too hard, and the courts might eventually stop it.
Oh.
So they let the corporations do it.
and then they just buy the data.
Or they partner for it. It's a public-private partnership for surveillance. The source mentions Flock Safety. Have you seen these cameras?
The automated license plate readers. They're everywhere now. In my neighborhood, the HOA put them up.
Why?
To keep us safe, of course, to catch package thieves.
Exactly. Safety. But Flock isn't just a camera. It's a networked AI system. It tracks movement patterns. It knows what car goes where at what time every single day.
And that data is accessible to law enforcement.
Thousands of agencies have access. So the government didn't put a checkpoint on your street. Your homeowners association did. But the government gets the data anyway.
It's the privatization of Big Brother. It's genius in a terrifying way.
Yeah.
You don't need the secret police when you have the Ring doorbell network.
It's a distributed surveillance state. Everyone is a willing participant.
The source also brings up the Five Eyes loophole. This is a classic intelligence workaround, isn't it?
It's one of the oldest tricks in the book. The U.S. has laws that prohibit the NSA from spying on American citizens in certain contexts without a warrant.
Right.
But there is no law stopping the British GCHQ from spying on Americans or the Canadians.
So we spy on the British spy on us, and then we just swap the hard drives.
Essentially, yes, it's a data swap. Here is the file on your dissidents. Thanks for the file on ours. The source argues this renders the Constitution effectively moot when it comes to digital privacy. The protections are just an illusion.
And the document also singles out Palantir. That name always feels like it was ripped straight out of Lord of the Rings.
It was the Seeing Stone from Tolkien's world, and it's an apt name.
They're a data synthesis company, right?
They don't just collect data, they connect it. They are the weavers. They take your license plate scan from Flock, your credit card transaction from Visa, your geolocation from your phone, and your social media posts, and they weave it all into a single searchable narrative of your life.
The God's eye view.
That's what the source calls it. The federal government trusts its subjects so little that it requires this God's eye view of the entire population, just in case.
And it's not just about watching, is it? The document argues it's about behavior modification. It makes a really heavy comparison to China's social credit system.
Which we in the West love to look down on. We see the stories, oh, look at those poor people. If they criticize the party, their travel pass gets revoked.
How dystopian. Thank God that could never happen here.
But the source says it is happening here. It's just privatized. We don't have a government score that's publicly visible.
We have something else.
We have financial deplatforming.
The gatekeepers.
The payment processors, Stripe, MasterCard, Visa, Discover. These are private companies, they have terms of service, and they can refuse service to anyone for basically any reason.
And the source points to a specific precedent for this, right?
It does. Operation Choke Point. This was an Obama-era initiative, but the precedent stands. The government, through the FDIC and DOJ, put pressure on banks to cut off services to high-risk industries.
But high risk didn't just mean illegal activities. It meant politically disfavored ones.
Yes.
Gun shops, payday lenders, things the administration didn't like.
Exactly. And if you can't process a credit card, you can't do business in 2026, you are commercially dead in the water.
You don't need a judge to sentence you to poverty.
You just need a mid-level manager in a risk assessment department at Visa to flag you for political incorrectness.
It's a soft kill. It's invisible. No due process.
And the source warns that the next step is to make this system inescapable.
Digital ID.
The final piece.
This is the part that is really ramping up in the news right now. This Protecting Children Act. The argument is always the same. The internet is a dangerous place for kids. There's porn, there's violence. We need to verify everyone's age to keep them safe.
It is the ultimate Trojan horse. I mean, who's going to argue against protecting children? If you stand up and say, I don't want a government-linked digital ID, you are immediately accused of not caring about child safety.
But the source calls their bluff on this. Hard.
It does. It points out that if the government actually wanted to ban child pornography or gratuitous violence online, they could enforce existing laws against the hosting platforms and the content creators. They don't.
So they let the chaos happen.
They allow the chaos Because the chaos creates the public demand for the solution they wanted all along: digital ID.
And once you have a digital ID that is required to log on to the internet,
Then you have the kill switch. If your digital ID is linked to your bank account, your health records, your social media, and your ability to read the news, you are no longer a free agent.
you are a node in the network.
A node that can be switched off at any time for any reason.
The source mentions Australia as being a sort of test lab for this kind of thing.
It fits the pattern described in the document. Australia is culturally similar to the U.S. Western English-speaking, but their population is, historically, much more compliant with government authority.
We saw that during the COVID lockdowns.
Well, we definitely did. The source argues that the empire tests these social control technologies, digital ID, internet censorship, things like that, in places like the UK, Canada, and Australia first. If it works there without a full-blown revolution, they know it's safe to import it to America.
That is a chilling thought. We are just the final rollout market.
Now, let's pivot. We've established the structure of the empire, the domestic control, the foreign partners, the surveillance grid. But an empire isn't just a static thing. It acts.
It projects power.
Exactly. And right now, in January 2026, it is acting in Venezuela.
Section 3. The Venezuelan capture. This is the main event of the source document, isn't it?
It is. This is the case study that ties everything together. And to understand it, we need to strip away the press release narrative immediately.
The official story.
The official story is Maduro is a dictator, he stole the election, the people are starving, and the U.S. is there to help.
Which is a story we've heard before.
Iraq, Libya. The playbook is well worn.
The source argues that while Maduro was certainly an authoritarian, the starvation and the economic collapse were largely engineered by Western sanctions.
We broke their legs, and then we blame them for not being able to walk. The source is very blunt about that.
But why? Why break the legs? And why send in the Marines now, specifically?
Oil. Energy security. The source is very, very specific here. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world.
Larger than Saudi Arabia.
Larger than Saudi Arabia. It's a geological fact.
But I've always heard that Venezuelan oil is, well, it's tricky. It's not the good stuff.
It's garbage. Technically speaking, it's garbage. It is extra heavy crude. It has an API gravity that is basically asphalt. You can't just pump it out of the ground and put it in a Toyota Camry.
It needs to be cooked. It needs to be refined in a major way.
It needs massive, complex refining. And here is the geopolitical hook. The only country on Earth with the massive refining capacity specifically designed to handle that kind of heavy, sour crude is the United States.
The Gulf Coast refineries.
Exactly. In Texas and Louisiana, they were built for this. They are perfectly suited to process Venezuelan crude.
So it's a puzzle piece. Venezuela has the raw supply. The U.S. has the processor.
They are geologically and industrially married, whether they like it or not. The source quotes President Trump in this 2026 timeline openly bragging about the wealth that will come from exporting these fields. It's not about liberation. It's about acquisition.
Okay, but we have oil in Texas.
Yeah.
We have the Permian Basin. We have fracking. Why do we need Venezuela so badly right now? What's the urgency?
Because of what the document calls the strategic pivot. Look at the global chessboard. Russian oil is effectively off limits to the West due to sanctions.
Okay.
The Middle East. Well, the Middle East is a powder keg. It's about to explode. The U.S. needs a massive, secure source of oil in its own hemisphere. It's the Fortress America strategy.
So if the Strait of Hormuz gets closed by Iran and Middle Eastern oil stops flowing,
The U.S. can shrug. We have the Orinoco Belt. We have Venezuela's reserves right in our backyard, ready to be processed by our refineries. It insulates the empire from global chaos.
there's another layer here that the source emphasizes. It's not just about the oil itself, it's about the currency. The BRICS nations.
This is the existential threat to the empire. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and their allies. They have been courting Venezuela for years.
Trying to get them to join the club.
Now, imagine if Venezuela joined BRICS and decided to sell those massive oil reserves in Chinese yuan instead of U.S. dollars.
The petrodollar.
The petrodollar system is the source of American economic superpower. It's the whole game. We can print trillions of dollars of debt because the world needs dollars to buy oil.
If the oil market moves to the yuan,
The demand for the dollar collapses overnight. We get hyperinflation here at home. The standard of living plummets. The empire goes bankrupt.
so capturing Venezuela wasn't just about getting gas for our cars.
Not at all.
It was about saving the dollar itself.
It was a financial rescue mission disguised as a humanitarian intervention. By taking Caracas, We ensure that the world's largest oil reserve stays denominated in dollars. We defended the currency with the United States Marine Corps.
It really puts a different spin on the phrase defending freedom. It's defending the Federal Reserve.
And speaking of culture and values, there is a massive irony in the Venezuela situation that the source points out, and it goes back to the domestic empire.
Okay.
We tend to think of the political spectrum as left versus right. Maduro is a socialist, so he must be left. The U.S. is capitalist, so it is right. Simple.
But the cultural axis is totally flipped, isn't it?
Completely. Maduro was economically socialist, yes, but culturally. The man was a traditionalist. He was a devout Catholic, at least in his public framing. He was staunchly against gay marriage. He opposed transgender ideology. He promoted the traditional nuclear family.
So in terms of social values, the evil dictator actually aligned more with a conservative voter in Alabama than the current U.S. State Department does.
That is the paradox. The domestic empire, as we discussed, is culturally progressive. It pushes what the source calls woke capital or liberal universalism as its state religion.
So when we liberate Venezuela, we aren't just bringing them capitalism and voting booths.
No,
We are bringing them the pride flag.
we are bringing them the whole package. The source predicts that the new U.S.-installed government in Caracas will immediately move to modernize Venezuela's social laws. They will legalize gay marriage, they will push gender theory in schools, they will secularize the public square.
It's the vanillaization again, making Caracas look like California.
It's exporting the culture of the domestic empire. And the source is absolutely brutal on the Catholic Church here.
Also,
It argues that the church hierarchy supported the coup. They supported the democracy movement, completely ignoring that this movement will ultimately destroy the Catholic moral framework of the country.
they traded their cultural values for a seat at the political table.
And the source argues they will likely lose both in the long run.
That is a heavy realization.
Yeah.
The empire doesn't just want your oil. It wants your soul. It wants you to look and think and believe exactly like it does.
Which leads us to the other big player in Latin America. We can't talk about this region without talking about the cartels.
Right.
And Section 4 of the document exposes what it calls the hypocrisy of power.
This part made me angry, honestly. It really did. Because the source points out that the author had previously argued for a special military operation against the Mexican cartels.
The Putin precedent, just go in and clean them out. No more games.
Because who is actually killing Americans on a daily basis?
Yo?
It's not the Venezuelan Cartel of the Suns, a group most Americans had never even heard of.
No.
It's the Sinaloa cartel. It's CJNG. These are the groups pumping fentanyl into Ohio and Pennsylvania and West Virginia.
Tens of thousands of Americans die every year from fentanyl overdoses. It is a mass casualty event happening every single year, year after year.
So if the goal of the empire is protecting its citizens,
Yeah.
why are the Marines in Caracas instead of Culiacan? Why are we securing oil fields instead of destroying fentanyl labs?
The source offers a two-part answer to that. First, there's the domestic solution.
What's that?
The source argues, and this is very controversial, that the U.S. government has the power to solve the cartel problem domestically tomorrow if it wanted to. By treating cartel members operating on U.S. soil not as criminals, but as enemy combatants. The source suggests executing undocumented residents found to be engaged in cartel activity, like drug trafficking or human smuggling. A ruthless martial law approach.
You sell fentanyl, you face a firing squad.
It's extreme, but the point the source is making is not that this should be done, but that the government chooses not to do it. It chooses a law enforcement model that has clearly failed for 50 years.
And then comes the accusation. The why. Why do they choose to fail?
The CIA.
Of course.
The source revives the old dark theory that never really goes away, the idea that the U.S. intelligence community, specifically the CIA, profits from the international drug trade.
We've heard this for decades. Air America flying heroin out of Southeast Asia during Vietnam. The Contras flying cocaine into the U.S. in the 80s to fund their war.
Gary Webb's Dark Alliance series. The source argues this isn't ancient history, it's the ongoing business model. The claim is that off-the-books drug money funds the black budget, the clandestine operations that Congress doesn't know about and can't oversee.
So if you actually destroy the cartels,
You destroy the slush fund. You cut off the unchecked, untraceable cash flow that the deep state uses to manipulate events around the world.
so the war on drugs is a complete and total sham.
The source argues it is conflict management, not a war. You manage the flow, you take out a rival here and there to keep prices stable and maintain control, but you never, ever kill the golden goose that lays the golden eggs.
That is, well, it's cynicism on a level that is hard to process.
It is.
It implies that the empire is willing to let its own citizens die of overdoses by the thousands to maintain its geopolitical slush fund.
The strongs do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. It just keeps coming back to that central theme.
Okay, let's zoom out. We have the domestic empire spying on us. We have the Venezuelan capture securing the oil and the dollar. We have the cartels being managed for profit. Now let's look at the other side of the world. Section 5, the bigger picture.
This is the grand strategy. This is where it all connects. How does Caracas connect to Tehran?
Because right now, in this 2026 scenario, Iran is on fire. Protests, riots, it looks like it could all come down.
And the source claims these are not organic. They are the result of a massive, coordinated intelligence operation run by the U.S. and Israel.
Regime change, it's the ultimate goal.
The goal is to topple the Ayatollah, to remove the Islamic Republic and install a pro-Western government. The source specifically mentions the restoration of the Pahlavi dynasty.
The Shah's son.
Exactly. A leader who would bring Iran back into the vassal list, make them a partner state again like they were before 1979.
But Iran isn't Grenada. You can't just push them over. They have a massive trump card.
The Strait of Hormuz, that narrow strip of water where something like 20% of the world's oil passes through every single day.
If Iran feels threatened, existentially threatened, they have always said they will mine the strait, they'll close it down.
And if they do that, the global economy has an immediate catastrophic heart attack. Oil goes to $200, $300 a barrel overnight. The global supply chain freezes. It is mutually assured destruction, economically speaking.
So how do you conduct regime change against a country that holds a gun to the head of the world economy?
You get a backup battery. You get an alternative supply first.
That's why.
That is the connection. The source argues you cannot make a serious move on Iran until you have secured Venezuela. The U.S. needed to capture the heavy crude in the Orinoco Belt, get the American companies in there, get the pumps running, and ensure that if the Middle East goes offline, the lights stay on in America and its key allies.
So the invasion of Venezuela was the prerequisite. It was step one in a much larger plan.
It was the shield. Now that the shield is up, the empire can pick up the sword in the Middle East.
It's a terrifyingly logical sequence of events when you lay it out like that. Capture the oil in the West so you can topple the regime in the East.
It shows the scale of the thinking. This isn't about Maduro is a bad guy. This is planetary chess. The lives of individuals are not a factor in the calculation.
But where does that leave the people on the ground? The Venezuelans, the Iranians, the average people caught in the middle of this.
Pawns. There are pawns on the board to be sacrificed if necessary.
Where does that leave us? The American citizens who are supposedly the beneficiaries of all this?
That is the question the source leaves us with in the outro. And it chills me to the bone every time I read it.
The Thucydides principle.
The strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. The source concludes that the American empire has evolved beyond the need for the consent of the governed. It acts for its own preservation.
So who does it act for?
It acts for the oligarchy, what the source describes as the coalescence of finance, intelligence, and military-industrial interests.
So it's not a government of the people, by the people, for the people.
No, it's a system of the empire by the bureaucracy for the special interests.
And here is the final dark thought. The source mentions, almost as an aside, that Maduro loyalists are fleeing into the jungles. They are taking their weapons with them. They're preparing for an insurgency.
Guerrilla warfare.
Exactly. The U.S. military is going to spend the next few years developing technologies and tactics to hunt down these insurgents in the Venezuelan interior.
Drone swarms, AI tracking, predictive policing based on satellite imagery. All of it.
And the source asks, what happens when they bring those toys home?
That's the question.
Exactly. If the domestic empire views the 50 states as occupied territory, and if dissent here at home continues to rise, how long before the tactics used to hunt Maduro loyalists in the jungle are used to hunt domestic extremists in the Ozarks or Appalachia?
It's the ultimate feedback loop.
We've already seen the surveillance. We've seen the financial deplatforming. The special military operation mentality, applying that to your own country, might be the final piece of the puzzle.
If you start to treat your citizens as subjects, eventually you have to be prepared to treat them as enemies.
On that rather uplifting note,
Yeah.
we have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with that image. Look at the map. Look at the headlines from Caracas. And then look at that little camera lens on your neighbor's doorbell.
And ask yourself, who is watching? And who are they watching for?
Are you a citizen of a republic or a subject of an empire?
And if you are a subject, are you a loyal one?
Keep your eyes open, everyone, and keep asking the hard questions. We'll see you on the next deep dive.